Welcome back to another edition of From the Heart. Today, we continue our study of the Gospel of Luke. The message comes from the book of Luke 1 verses 57 to 61 titled The Birth of John the Baptist. As you know by now, I love the Gospel of Luke. Luke was a physician, and the setting of most of the events in Luke took place in Galilee and Judea. These encounters, filled with divine wisdom, enlighten us and guide us in our spiritual journey. So let's continue our discussion of the Gospel of Luke. Before we get into verses 57 through 61, allow me to take a step back to cover verse 56, which I neglected to include in my last post, titled Mary's Song. Luke 1 verse 56 states that Mary stayed with Elizabeth for about 3 months and then returned home. End quote. This verse points to the length of time Mary and Elizabeth spent together before the birth of John the Baptist. This verse also serves as a reminder of the power of connection, the faithfulness of God, and the generational impact of our obedience to God. One never truly knows how our actions can influence the generations to come. Therefore, pray without ceasing for God's guidance. Now, let us explore Luke 1 verses 57 to 61, which states, "When it was time for Elizabeth to have her baby, she gave birth to a son. Her neighbors and relatives heard that the Lord had shown her great mercy, and they shared her joy. On the 8th day they came to circumcise the child, and they were going to name him after his father Zechariah. But his mother spoke up and said, 'No, he is to be called John.' They said to her, 'There is no one among your relatives who has that name.'" In this passage, we bear witness to a truly miraculous moment, the birth of John the Baptist. Elizabeth, the wife of Zechariah, who is a priest, gives birth to their son, a feat that defied the norms of their age and circumstances, leaving us in awe of God's power and grace. What makes this event particularly extraordinary and a miraculous announcement is the unwavering faith of Elizabeth and Zechariah. Despite being well beyond the typical childbearing years, their longing for a child had likely been a lifelong prayer. Their faithfulness and perseverance in their prayers can serve as a powerful inspiration for us all. When Elizabeth gave birth, her neighbors and relatives rejoiced with her. They recognized that the Lord had shown her great mercy. The birth of John is not just a personal blessing, it's a cause for celebration within the community, lifting our spirits and reminding us of the joy that comes from God's blessings. On the 8th day, according to Jewish tradition, they gathered for the circumcision of the child. At that time, they would also name the child after his father. However, Elizabeth surprised everyone by insisting that the child be called John. But that name wasn't part of their family tree. Instead, the name was divinely ordained. Elizabeth's unwavering obedience to God's instruction, naming the child John, teaches us to listen to divine guidance even when it contradicts societal norms or expectations. This reassures us that God's plan is always perfect, and His guidance is always there to lead us, even in the most unexpected ways. Lastly, this passage shows a blend of faith, joy, and divine intervention, woven by God's hand. John's birth defied natural limitations, emphasizing God's sovereignty. Therefore, we know God's blessings come in unexpected ways we can't imagine are possible. Dear listeners, remember that faith is not about having all the answers. It's about trusting in God's purpose for your life, trusting the unseen, and finding meaning in your journey. This trust can bring peace and reassurance amid life's uncertainties. Thank you for joining me on this enlightening excursion through parts of the Bible. I await your unique perspective on what the book of Luke, chapter 1, verses 56 through 61, means to you. Your distinct interpretation of the passages is a valuable addition to our discussion. So let's engage in a meaningful conversation so that we might learn and grow together. I encourage you to share your reflections on the book of Luke, as it will foster a sense of community and promote engagement. Your active participation makes our community lively, and your voice enhances our discussion. As you go about your day, please find strength in the words shared. Go in peace, and may the armor of God always be with you. This message is from the heart. Also, I invite you to consider liking and subscribing to this channel. Doing so will help grow our community and foster a space for meaningful discussions of the Word of God. I encourage you to invite others interested in deepening their faith and engaging in meaningful conversation. Until next time, bye for now.